Town of Križevci is a very small town in near Zagreb, in Croatia. We have less than 20,000 inhabitants, but we are very known for our energy transition goals. And our mayor is very eager to make our city energy independent by 2030. So we had like two public buildings, two solar power plant installations, both 30 kilowatts. And the project was implemented 7 years ago. So these are our two buildings. As I said, two public buildings, development center and technological park. Was the first building, and we had like crowdlending campaign. In 10 days, we collected 30,000 euros. Average investment was 566 euros. And we offered 4.5% interest rate on 10 years contract duration. So we have a monthly rent of 400 euros. That's the estimation of energy savings through solar power plant on the building. We have had minimum and maximum investments because we wanted to have as much as possible investors. And as also Jean said, we didn't want to have one or two big investors. It was the idea to test how citizens are willing to invest, how many we can have in the project. That's why we had like minimum and maximum. And on the second, it was a year later, our city library. It was a 2-day campaign with 40 investors, the same minimum and maximum amount, and pretty much the same average investment, but the interest rate was like 3% because the use of the produced electricity is not so good like in the previous building. But we have again a 10 years contract duration and a little bit lower monthly rate because the energy savings are also lower. It was a 23,000 euros investment. It's a little bit lower investment, although it's also 30 kilowatt of power plant. But in 1 year, and the prices were lower, so we have a little bit lower investment. But how this is working? So the city didn't want to have direct connection with the investors because of the administration, and it's not easy to take the money from the citizen. We didn't have any crowdfunding legislation. We still don't have our national regulation on this. So we have Green Energy Cooperative as a mediator between citizens, investors, and the city, actually the user. The user of the building is also the city companies, so entrepreneurship center in first case, and the public library is also owned by the city. So investors are giving microloans to Green Energy Cooperative. So it's a contract on 10 years. Your investment is secured because you have a contract that is obligation for Green Energy Cooperative. And Green Energy Cooperative has a lease agreement for equipment to user of the building. So the solar power plant is in ownership of the Green Energy Cooperative, and they are leasing their equipment to the building, which is paying on monthly rent through 10 years to Green Energy Cooperative. As I already said, the rent is fixed on the energy savings estimation, And then Green Energy Cooperative is repaying loans to citizens on annually basis. So we have this monthly repayment between user and project owner because of some kind of security that they will pay and that the Green Energy Cooperative will collect the money, and then on the annually basis to investors because of the administration and high costs if we would repay it every month. And what was the role of the city? They gave the permission to set up the power plant on the roof of the buildings in their ownership. They also gave public support for the project, and they were actively involved in the promoting of the project. Mayor was on all of the workshops with the citizens, and in all media. It was a first crowdfunding campaign in Croatia in such a way, and it was very popular. So everyone wanted to write about it. It was on all newspaper, on all TV shows, so very popular. But also the city took over payment of the rent in case the user will not be able to repay it. That was, I think, something that gave trust to citizens because it was secured that they will get the money back. And it was also logically because the city is owner of the building and also established the entrepreneurial center and the public library. Why was this a success? Such a success for everyone in the project. The main factor was the community engagement. Component. So Green Energy Cooperative connected also in the project Greenpeace, Energy Cities, regional energy agency. So it was very important to have the wide community to support the project. But also through the campaign, we worked with all NGOs in the city, with all the public institutions, with whoever we could engage in the project, in the promotion. 30% of the investors were from Križevci. So it was a national project because Green Energy Cooperative was not sure because it was the first time project in Croatia, and we were not sure if citizens are interested in such projects and investments. So we were talking about going national, but 30% was from Križevci, the city itself. It was a great promotion for a municipality as enabler that helped innovation to happen and engage public institutions and citizens in a joint process. It also opened the door to participation in several new projects, also for the city, but also for the Green Energy Cooperative. And in 2020, citizens from Križevci established their own local energy cooperative, so that they will be able to drive local energy transition on their own. It also increased demand for solar equipment, resulting in new solar businesses and new jobs creation in local community. After the project, now we have more than 200 household solar power plants installed. People are very interested to produce their own energy and to make savings. So it's also due to local energy cooperative clique that promoted this kind of projects and helped citizens to implement solar power plants on their rooftops. So it was like a community engagement. It was a demo project, so now we had a new way model, I would say. Green Energy Cooperative established a new cooperative, especially for investments. And in this new model, everyone that is wanting to invest in solar equipment is also a member of the cooperative. In our Križevci case, so investors are not member of the cooperative, they are just loaning the money. But in a new model, if you want to invest, you need to be a member of the cooperative. So you have a share in a cooperative, you have a share in the project, and then you earn money from the at the end of the year. In this case, cooperative is the owner of the solar equipment and also members. And they are not doing this model of energy savings. They are just producing the energy and selling on the market. So that's the difference. I was very short, but I'm open for your questions. It's not easy to understand this model for the first time, so it's easier to go through the questions if you have.
Thanks a lot, Sanela. And also, I always thought that your project is a great example of finding a way of implementing such an innovative new way of funding projects when the national regulations have not been adapted yet. Because as you mentioned to us at some point, it was, you mentioned here now as well, it was not possible. Could you tell us a bit more about those barriers on the national level in terms of the regulations and how you went around it to make this project happen?
Yeah, so as I said, we didn't have and still don't have regulations on crowdfunding to use it in municipality projects. We don't have any national or local providers for such projects. So that's why we used a cooperative, because that is something that is regulated. As a cooperative, you can take money from citizens to investors or members and use it to finance whatever you want. So you have clear regulations there, and that's why this was the only model that we could use it in our project. But now with as we still don't have the regulation, now this model of becoming a member of cooperative is more suitable, because in Križevci project for cooperative is not good to have like lots of investments on this way through loans, because then you are not, well, it's your debt, and then you have problems financing other projects. So it's great for small projects and etc. But for bigger investments, it's better to be a member of cooperative and then invest as a member of cooperative.
And something that stood out to me when both of you were speaking about your project is that you both mentioned the role of your mayors, their involvement and support for the project, also that the residents have in your in the mayors. So I guess this is something worth emphasizing, that the mayors have to be on board, especially when these kind of instruments are quite new. There is a question from Joanna. Was it the only source of investment or only part of it for your project, Sanela?
Yes,
and how big part was it?
Yeah, that was 100% investment through Citizens Loan.
Because it was a relatively small project that you used as a pilot.
Yes, yes. And also now 7 years later, actually None of the city in Croatia didn't replicate the project because like we have also problem with the trust in cooperatives. We have this history with cooperatives, and people are not willing to cooperate with cooperatives, especially municipalities. But also this new project model that this now has, I think they also did it only with Križevci. We still are waiting for other cities to be more brave. There are too much of on traditional ways of financing projects. They all are waiting for EU money, for EU programs, but this is something that we will not have all the time, and we need to see the new models. Also, we don't have a good examples with public-private partnerships. We had few projects that were not successful, or was not successful here in Croatia. So a lot of space to work with our municipalities for new financing models.
And Miroslav is also asking, does it mean that you haven't had similar projects after that one? Because you mentioned that there is this new model, right? That people would now need to join the cooperative, but does it mean that similar project has not happened yet?
Yeah, so we had this new model was 1 year ago, implemented also in Križevci with one solar power plant on 200 kilowatts. But they had some also problems, and they should now build the power plant. So it's going very slowly. They were also waiting for feed-in tariff program because the prices are very low, and it's not so there's no money in it. So you cannot promise to investors, members of the cooperative, some big money in this. So yeah, there are some problems also in our energy sector in Croatia. So we are hoping for better days.
That's a very good point, actually, to maybe also ask Jean-François, to what I understand that there are some differences in Belgium and in Croatia in terms of the regulations. You mentioned, Sanela, feed-in tariffs that would be the basis for you to be able to repay with the promised interest. Jean-François, how did you go about ensuring that you would have this extra money to pay the residents back, not only what they paid, but also with the interest? And you also know each other's projects well, so I guess you can also comment on the main differences between your approaches.
What I can tell you is that we certainly had a long checking discussion with our control authorities, because it was the financial authority, the regional finance authority, also the authority on public procurement, etc., to make sure that everything was secure and to make sure that we would be able, first of all, not to lose the capital money of the investors, first of all. And this is the reason why there is this European regulation. And then to be able to reimburse also the interest rates. And that was, we had to show that in our budget, in our accounting tables, there was this money set aside, etc., etc. Of course, in the end, the main source of financing for a municipality is the tax. So this is a bit strange, but the money for us to repay the capital and the interest of the residents is the tax of the residents themselves, because there is no other way for a public body. Full stop. But if you do so, you have the feeling, and the investor have the feeling, that their taxes are used in a good way.
And they are also benefiting, so they are paying their taxes, but then they are making money on contributing to the municipal project.
And they receive money, and they can themselves, or their children can themselves benefit of the investment. They can put their children in the kindergarten. If we renovate the swimming pool, which is our next project, they will themselves go swimming with their family in the swimming pool. So this makes a big difference.
Do you think that in your case, do you think in your cases, the residents are aware that the municipality does not have resources to do everything as quickly as everyone would want to? Or is there also this attitude, maybe it's more about Eastern Europe, that residents believe it's the municipality who needs to find the money and not ask them to contribute? Do you think there is a cultural mindset difference that affected both of your projects?
I don't know, Sanela, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I would just add that we had lots of comments in our local community, like, why are you using our money? Can you not use it, EU funds? So you're not able to use EU funds. You need to have better people in the municipality to use EU funds. Like, yeah, they were like, we are used to it, but in the end, like 30-40 years ago, it was very popular for community, for citizens to invest in local infrastructure. So we were giving our money to have telecommunication infrastructure. We were giving our money for having utility infrastructure. And we're just giving the money. It was not investment that you will have a return on something. You had, like, in return, you had the service that you are paying now. But now, like, people forgot that we already had crowdfunding.
I believe in Belgium, people are aware that the public bodies are not rich. At least they don't have savings. And it is totally the contrary for the private households. There was a study in Belgium, every household has more or less 100,000 euro savings, and they do nothing with it. So the idea is to make this money circulate in the economy. And I think not everybody, but a number of people are aware of that. Investors, public investors like us, or even private investors, don't have that much savings, and they have to raise money in the form of shares, in the form of municipal or public bonds, or in the forms of loans at the bank. And in the end, it's up to the people who have their savings used for nothing to have this mindset and to put it available for the community, of course, with the security of getting back the capital and, if possible, an acceptable rate also of interest. But yeah, this needs education. This needs education, because when you say when people say, "Oh, you municipality, why don't you finance it on your own?" But my money at the municipality is your money as taxpayer. So yeah, there is a need of education, because people are not always aware of how the flows of money go.
And either way, it's their money.
Yeah,
taxpayers'
exactly.
money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how do you, because when we talk about this very ambitious energy transition that all local authorities and countries have to go through in the next few years, like the scale is huge, and there will not be enough subsidies. The investment plans, the plans for all the projects, large-scale transformation, are really ambitious. To what extent do you think that crowdfunding, crowdlending, crowd investing can play a role, or do you think it's just kind of an extra instrument or just ready to part of the whole transformation investment plan that needs to happen? Because that's also sometimes something I hear from people with no experience with crowdfunding when they say, oh, this is a bit like a pet project, but it doesn't have a sufficient potential to really contribute to energy transformation on the local level.
I am not a macroeconomist, so I cannot answer, but I think it's a fairly interesting question, because I think the solution is in the construction of using different sources of financing for the investments, but also on the other side, reducing, of course, the consumption, making sure that the are well regulated, etc. To reduce, do good investment, but also reduce the cost.
Sanela, and in your case, go ahead, Jean-François.
A last thing on the topic we discussed before. People say, why don't you municipality use your own money to do something, to do the investment? I would say it's better for the citizen that I use his money and I give back the capital plus interest than using my money, because my money is his money in terms of in the form of tax. So it's certainly much profitable for the citizen to loan money than to accept simple taxes.
I agree. But also when we already are giving our money to pension funds, and if you invest in some funds and they are already are investing in energy transition, but I think that also our local entrepreneurs should be a big part of this investment chain. Because they have money, they are like making lots of creative ways to have at the end of the year to have not so much money on their account to pay less taxes. So why not invest in local community projects rather than buy a new car or something just to have a little money to pay taxes. So I think that there is a big potential. Also in Croatia, we have millions and millions of savings that are just somewhere. And I think it's a good way to put this money in investments.
So it's not just laying under the bed.
Yeah,
it's actually used. Mm-hmm.
One thing I still wanted to mention, the problem is for a very small part in the public authority. In fact, the big effort to be done, at least what I mentioned in a urban area like Etterbeek, is the private housing. There, a lot of investment, and first of all, the most important part of the greenhouse gas emission is from the private houses, not from the municipal building, and from the private cars. So, okay, they can complain with the public is not enough, but the biggest effort, at least in a urban context, must come from the private. So their savings, if they don't want to give it in a crowdfunding for the municipality, at least please use it to renovate your own house and make it better in terms of energy performance.
Yes, and there is this comment from Miroslav that there is still a lot to do about the energy literacy of citizens. So really education and changing mindset to the new reality that we are living in. Just checking if anyone in our room has any experience with citizen finance, similar projects, maybe a little bit different approaches, and would like to share your experience, maybe some of the barriers that you have seen. And I'm also curious, Sanela and Jean-François, having your experience, would you have any recommendations for decision makers, both on the regional, national, and European level, to make this kind of project easier, maybe more profitable, easier for you to manage? There has been some positive regulatory changes, which Jean-François explained, but is there anything else that you would recommend happens to make it easier both for you and for those who have not started yet? It's perfect as it is.
No. At least in the urban context, as I mentioned, a very huge effort needs to be done for the private houses to make them more performant in terms of energy. So if the public sector, if the law, if the grants can focus on that, primarily, it would be a very good thing. Like, facilities, make it easy for the people to renovate their house in terms of urban permits, in terms of getting loans at a very low rate, in terms of getting subsidies, in terms of getting technical support, whatever. That would be in a urban context as Brussels. It's the priority. In fact, it's the renovation, or at least decrease the greenhouse gas emission from the private house and from the private offices.
And you also mentioned that under the current regulations, there needs to be an intermediary to secure the money. But if I understood correctly, it could have been easier for you if you didn't have to have this intermediary. Would that be something that you would like to get explored? Or do you think that this security aspect is really important enough to keep it as it is?
I believe that this regulation 2020/1503, which secures the money from the investors in a crowd lending campaign, is built for private investors, with the risk that the private investor can go bankrupt or can take a flight and escape in Panama, whatever. But this is not the case of a municipality. So I believe this regulation should have a special article saying that for public bodies, we are not obliged, or something that allows us to make our own to escape the obligation of this intermediary. Yeah, it would be a good thing.
That, I think, is a very concrete postulate that we can mention during our final event, when we have both representatives of the European Commission and the financial institutions in the room. We have 3 minutes left, so any final comments? I can see that there's something new popping up in the chat. Any final comments from you, Sanela and Jean-François? Anything you would like to mention before we close now?
Yeah, well, I mostly agree with Jean, but also I think that we need to have maybe more, like, from state to state. There are different translations of EU directives, and I think that we need to work more on that, because we need to have, like, if we are having some EU directives, they should be like the same in every country, not different. But also, I think that we need to have more utilization of private investments. Should also be followed by tax policies. If we want for citizens and for companies to invest in local projects, I think that they should have some better taxes policies. But yeah, I think that as we are seeing this all the problems we have now within the European Union, I think that subsidies will be lower and lower. So we should be very prepared to use the money we have in our under the bed and in our socks, and to multiply it in the best way we can.
I think that's a perfect summary and ending to our meeting today. I would love to thank you for your contribution and your hard work to prepare these presentations that are full of content and will be very useful for everyone who has not had this experience. So huge thank you, and for your involvement in Prospect over the years, because this is exactly what we were hoping to achieve, linking municipalities and cities together. I have shared in the chat the link to our policy survey again, because it's really the last moment to contribute. I am working now on putting together all your recommendations, all your postulates, and also your reality on the local level. So do contribute to that within this week, let's say. It really takes just a few minutes. If you have contributed already, you can update your contribution in case you've changed your mind this way or another. And we invite you to follow us. We will send you more information about the final event, but also the outcomes of the final event, the recommendations, and what can happen later on.